People fear the unknown. They fear change. And you're different. You're not like them. You don't settle. You don't beg for acceptance. No, no, no. You crave something else. Something deeper, something stronger, growth. And that makes you dangerous. Because the moment you stop needing validation, the moment you stop playing by their rules, oh my friend, that's when the fun begins. That's when they start whispering. That's when they start looking at you differently. You see, people love to watch you rise until you rise too high. They love to see you grow until you grow too much. Because the second you outgrow them, you become a threat. You become untouchable. And let me tell you something, they hate that. They hate that they can't control you anymore. That their words, their opinions, their little tricks known of it works on you. You've outgrown their games. You've outgrown their expectations. And most of all, you've outgrown the weak version of yourself that used to care. You ever notice how quiet it gets when you start winning? How the applause fades? How the cheers turn into whispers? That's because they don't celebrate real power. They don't cheer for the one who stopped depending on them. No. They only clap for the ones they can still control. But you don't need their applause. You don't need their approval, because you've built something they never will self-respect. And let me tell you, the moment you become addicted to growth, the moment you refuse to stay the same, that's when you become unstoppable. Because nothing scares people more than the one who can walk away and never look back. The one who doesn't seek revenge, doesn't seek approval, just seeks progress. That's power. That's real power. Bro, they rot. They get comfortable, they settle, they make excuses. I can't do this. It's too hard. Maybe next year. Next year? Next year? That's a joke. That's a lie people tell themselves when they're too scared to move. But you don't do excuses. You don't do waiting. You do the work. You take the pain, the struggle, the failures, and you use them. And here's the funny part, once you start growing, you start seeing the truth. You start realizing that most people, they don't want to change. They don't want to grow. They just want to feel safe. They want to stay in their little comfort zones, their little bubbles, and the second you step out of yours, they'll try to pull you back in. Stay with us. Don't leave us behind. You've changed. You're damn right I've changed. That's the whole point. Growth is pain. Growth is destruction. You don't get to build something new without tearing down the old. You don't get to be someone new without killing the old version of yourself. And that's what people don't understand. They want success without struggle, strength without suffering. They want the reward but not the risk. But you're different. You know that every scar, every failure, every lonely night, it's all part of the process. You know that the pain isn't there to break you, it's there to build you. And the moment you accept that, the moment you embrace it, you become something they can't understand. You become untouchable. Because a man who is addicted to growth, a man who doesn't need comfort, doesn't need approval, doesn't need anyone's permission, that man is the most dangerous person in the room. And the best part, they can't stop you. They can try. They can mock you, betray you, turn their backs on you. They can laugh at you, doubt you, spread their little lies. But in the end, none of it matters. Because while they're wasting time talking about you, you're building, you're learning, you're winning. And one day, they'll realize what you became. They'll realize they should have never doubted you, never laughed at you, never let you go. But by then, it'll be too late, because you'll be too far ahead, too far gone. So let them talk, let them doubt you, let them fear you. Because once you become addicted to growth, nothing can stop you. Not their words, not their hate, not even their love. You don't need them. You never did. And now they know it too. People are comfortable in their little worlds. Safe, predictable, controlled. They wake up, follow the same routine, eat the same food, have the same conversations, and complain about the same problems. They call this life. They call this happiness. But what they don't realize is it's a trap, a beautiful little cage, locked from the inside. And the second you decide to step out of that cage, to break the pattern, to become something more, they turn on you. They call you arrogant, selfish, reckless. Because you threaten their existence. You remind them of everything they are too afraid to become. You show them a mirror, and they hate what they see. That's why they whisper when you walk by. That's why they smirk when you fail. That's why they try to keep you small, keep you weak, keep you predictable. Because the moment you outgrow them, the moment you stop playing by their rules, you become something they fear, someone they can't control. But here's the truth. Growth is not a choice. It's a necessity. It's survival. Everything in this world either evolves or dies. The strong adapt. The weak cling to the past. And those who refuse to grow, they decay from the inside out. But most people don't even see it happening. They get used to the slow rot of a life unlived. They convince themselves that mediocrity is just fine. That settling is smart. That avoiding risk is the same as avoiding failure. Oh, but you're different. You know that staying the same is the biggest failure of all. You know that comfort is the slowest kind of poison. It tastes sweet at first, familiar, easy, warm. But one day, you wake up, and it's inside you. It's in your veins, in your mind, in your soul. And you realize you've wasted years. Years living a life that wasn't even yours. Years making yourself small just so others could feel big. Years waiting for the right moment. Waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for permission. But here's the thing. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to tell you it's time. No one is going to give you permission to be great. You have to take it. And the second you do, everything changes. You start moving differently, thinking differently. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand. And you stop looking for love in places where you were only ever meant to leave. That's when you become dangerous. That's when they start to notice. You see, people don't mind when you dream as long as you never wake up. They don't mind when you talk about success as long as you never actually succeed. Because the second you do, the second you start making moves, start making progress, start making history, they turn. Suddenly, you're too much. Suddenly, you've changed. Suddenly, you think you're better than them. But the truth is, you have changed. And you are better than the old version of yourself. The one who doubted, the one who hesitated, the one who settled. That version of you is dead. And if that makes them uncomfortable, good. Let them be uncomfortable. Because people will only support you as long as they feel like they are above you. The moment you surpass them, the moment you show them what's possible, the moment you prove that they were wrong about you, they will resent you for it. They will pretend they never knew you. They will rewrite history in their minds. Oh, we always knew they wouldn't last. They got lucky. They changed. But deep down, they know the truth. They know they could have come with you. They know they could have grown too, but they chose not to. They chose comfort. They chose excuses. They chose mediocrity. And now, they have to live with it. While you are too far ahead to hear their whispers, too focused to care about their opinions, too busy winning to worry about those who have already lost. That's why people fear the one who is addicted to growth, because that person cannot be controlled. That person cannot be guilt-tripped into staying small. That person doesn't need permission, doesn't need approval, doesn't need validation. That person will walk through hell and come out smiling. That person will lose everything and build it all back, twice as strong. That person will sit alone at an empty table and turn it into a kingdom. Because growth is not about what you have, it's about who you become. And once you become someone who refuses to stop evolving, you are unstoppable, unshakable, untouchable. And here's the real kicker: the people who doubted you, who mocked you, who tried to hold you back, they will come back. Oh, yes, they always do. The ones who ignored you when you were struggling, the ones who laughed when you failed, the ones who walked away when you had nothing to offer them, they will return, acting as if they were there all along, pretending they always believed in you, hoping you are still the same person who once needed their approval. But you won't be. You won't even recognize them anymore, because by then, you will have outgrown even the need for revenge. You will be too busy building, too busy creating, too busy winning. And they will still be standing in the same place, watching, wishing, wondering how you did it. And the answer is simple. You never stop growing. You never stop moving forward. You never let their fear become your future. While they held on to the past, you built the future. And now they get to watch, because that's all they can do, watch. So let them talk, let them doubt, let them stay exactly where they are, because you are already gone. Too far ahead to be caught, too focused to be distracted, too strong to ever go back. And that, my friend, that is what makes you dangerous. People fear the one who outgrows them because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. When you refuse to stay the same, you remind them of everything they failed to become. They see in you the risks they were too afraid to take, the sacrifices they were unwilling to make, and the discipline they never had. And that makes them uncomfortable. Because deep down, they know they had the same chances. They had the same 24 hours. They had the same opportunities to rise, to evolve, to break free from their own limitations. But instead, they chose comfort. They chose excuses. They chose the easy way out. And now they watch you resentful, bitter, filled with regret. But they'll never admit it. No, they'll call you lucky. They'll say you had an advantage. They'll act like your success was inevitable, as if it just happened overnight. But you and I, we know better. We know the blood, the sweat, the nights spent in silence, pushing, breaking yourself apart just to build something greater. We know the sacrifices, the losses, the countless times you stood alone with nothing but your own belief, your own fire, your own refusal to quit. That's what they'll never understand. That's what they'll never see. And that's why they hate you. Because deep down, they know they could have done it too. But they didn't. And now, all they can do is watch you rise. And the higher you climb, the lonelier it gets. Growth is a lonely road. the more you evolve, the more you start to see the world differently. Conversations that once excited you become boring. People you once admired start to feel small. You stop seeking validation because you've realized that most people's opinions are just reflections of their own fears. You stop needing their approval because you've learned that their approval was never about you, was about control. They supported you as long as you were predictable, as long as you played by their rules, as long as you stayed in your place. But the moment you broke the mold, the moment you decided to become more, they turned. They called you selfish. They called you crazy. They said you changed. But of course, you changed. That was the whole point. The person you were last year, dead. The version of you that accepted less, gone. The one who made excuses, who played small, who waited for life to happen, buried. And from that grave you built something stronger, someone unstoppable, someone they can't recognize anymore. And that terrifies them. But you see, there's no going back. Once you've tasted growth, once you've felt the power of becoming more, once you've seen what's possible, you can never return to who you were. The thought of it sickens you. The idea of settling, of shrinking, of pretending to be less just to make others comfortable. It's unbearable. Because now you see the truth. You see how small they made you feel just so they could feel big? You see how they tried to keep you weak because a strong version of you threatened their very existence. You see how they tried to fill your head with doubt, with fear, with limitations, just so you would never outgrow them. But now, the spell is broken. Now, you understand that their words were never about you. They were about them, their insecurities, their failures, their regrets. They wanted you to stay stuck because it made them feel better about never moving forward. But you were never meant to stay in one place. You were never meant to live in their world of limitations. You were meant to break the cycle, to rise, to evolve, to become something greater than they ever imagined. And now you stand on the edge of something new, a future they will never reach, a level they will never touch. And as you look back, as you see them still stuck in the same place, still making the same excuses, still waiting for something that will never come, you feel nothing. No anger, no resentment, no need to prove anything. Just a quiet understanding that you were never like them. You never belonged in that world. You were always meant for more. And now you are free. Free from their doubts. Free from their expectations. Free from the need to be understood. Because when you become addicted to growth, you realize something powerful. No one can stop you. No one can control you. No one can bring you back to a life you no longer belong to. And that is what makes you dangerous. And now, you are free. But freedom, it's a strange thing, isn't it? Everyone claims they want it, but the moment they have it, they don't know what to do with it. Because real freedom, it's terrifying. It's standing on the edge of a world where there are no more excuses, no more people to blame, no more hands to hold. It's just you and the choices you make. And that's why most people reject it. They'd rather be comfortable in their chains than risk the uncertainty of breaking free. Because when you have no one left to blame, when you can't point fingers at anyone else, you're left with the truth. The truth that your life is yours to build or to destroy. That kind of responsibility, it scares them. That's why they cling to the past, why they hold on to people who stunt their growth, why they sabotage their own success before it even begins. Because deep down, they don't want to grow. They just want to complain about not growing. But you don't have that luxury anymore. You've already seen too much. You've already stepped into a world where comfort is the enemy, where growth is the only goal, where every version of yourself that you leave behind is just another necessary sacrifice. You understand now that pain isn't your enemy, it's your teacher. That suffering isn't a punishment, it's a tool. And most importantly, that loneliness isn't a curse, it's proof that you're on the right path. Because real growth, it happens in the silence. It happens in the moments when there's no applause, no validation, to pat you on the back and tell you that you're doing great. It happens when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., questioning every decision, doubting every step, wondering if it's all worth it. And then, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, despite the overwhelming temptation to turn back, you keep going. That's the difference between you and them. That's why they hate you. Because you weren't afraid to walk away. You weren't afraid to embrace the pain. You weren't afraid to let go of everything that was holding you back, even when it hurt. Even when it made no sense. Even when it left you standing alone in a world that no longer felt familiar. And now, look at you. Look at what you've become. Stronger, sharper, unshaken by the things that used to break you. You move differently now. You speak with a certainty that makes them uncomfortable. You no longer seek permission to exist, to grow, to take up space. You no longer feel the need to justify your decisions, to explain why you chose to rise instead of rot. And that terrorized them, because they wanted you to fail. They wanted you to come running back, to admit that you were wrong, to crawl back into the cage they built for you. But you never did. You never will. And now, as you stand here, looking back at the life you left behind, you realize something: there is no going back. Not because you can't, but because you no longer want to. Because the person you were back then, they don't exist anymore. The one who settled, the one who tolerated disrespect, the one who begged for love, for friendship, for approval. That person, dead. And in their place stands someone new. Someone who doesn't need validation. Someone who doesn't seek acceptance. Someone who understands, finally, that the only person they ever needed to prove anything to was themselves. And this is just the beginning. Because growth has no finish line. There is no point where you stop, where you say, I've made it. Number. There's only the next challenge, the next level, the next battle. And you are built for this. You were never meant to be ordinary. You were never meant to live a life of quiet mediocrity, of small dreams and smaller ambitions. You were meant to break barriers, to shatter expectations, to redefine what's possible. And you don't do that by staying comfortable. You don't do that by holding on to people who no longer serve your journey. You don't do that by staying the same. You do it by evolving, by adapting, by destroying every version of yourself that can't survive at the next level. So let them talk, let them watch, let them whisper behind your back, let them question your decisions, let them call you arrogant, heartless, unrecognizable, because the truth is, they're right. You are unrecognizable, because the version of you they knew, gone. The version of you that waited, that hesitated, that begged to be understood, dead. And in their place stands someone they can no longer reach. Someone who no longer bends, no longer breaks, no longer cares about their opinions. Someone who is, finally, free. And that makes you dangerous. Because a person who is no longer afraid to lose is a person who is impossible to control. But freedom, it comes at a cost, doesn't it? It's fun, they never tell you that part. They sell you this dream, this idea that once you let go, once you move on, once you cut the dead weight, you'll feel lighter, you'll feel free. But they never tell you about the silence, the emptiness, the nights where you lie awake, staring at the ceiling, questioning if you made the right choice. Because growth, it's a lonely road. And the further you go, the fewer people you'll find walking beside you. At first, it's unsettling. You wonder if maybe, just maybe, they were right. Maybe you were too harsh. Maybe you should have stayed. Maybe you should have held on a little longer. And that's when the doubt creeps in, whispering to you, trying to pull you back into the life you fought so hard to leave. But here's the truth, most people can't acceptance. You've outgrown a place, a mindset, a version of yourself. No matter how much you try to fit back into it, you never will. It will never feel the same. And deep down, you know that. You know that the person you were is gone, and no amount of nostalgia, no amount of longing, no amount of loneliness will ever bring them back. And that's the hardest part. Because as much as you don't want to admit it, there's a part of you that misses them, the people, the comfort, the familiarity. You remember the laughter, the late night conversations, the moments that once felt unbreakable. And for a second, just a second, you wonder if it was all worth it. But then, you remember why you left. You remember the lies, the betrayal, the way they only loved you when you fit into their version of you. You remember the way they doubted you, the way they laughed when you said you wanted more, the way they turned their backs the moment you decided to break free. And that's when it hits you, these people were never meant to stay. They were lessons. Temporary characters in a story far bigger than they could ever understand. And the moment you stop needing them, the moment you stop seeking their approval, they hated you for it. Because nothing scares people more than someone who doesn't rely on them to survive. And now, here you are. Stronger, sharper, more ruthless in your pursuit of something greater. But the best part is, you haven't even reached your final form yet. You are still evolving, still growing, still shedding the parts of yourself that no longer belong. And with each version you leave behind, become more dangerous. Because when a person becomes addicted to growth, when they no longer fear change, when they embrace pain as fuel instead of something to avoid, they become unstoppable. That's what they don't understand. They think losing people will break you. They think standing alone will make you weak. They think walking away will leave you empty. But in reality, it makes you powerful. Because the less you need, the more dangerous you become. And that's why they fear you now. Because they see it. They see the way you carry yourself differently. The way your presence demands respect without a single word. The way you don't flinch, don't react, don't give them the satisfaction of knowing they ever had power over you. You become something they can't define, something they can't manipulate, something they can't control. And that's the ultimate revenge. Not proving them wrong, not showing them you made it, not rubbing your success in their faces. The real revenge is becoming someone they can no longer reach. Someone whose name they have to speak with caution. Someone whose presence reminds them of everything they could have been, but were too afraid to become. That's what you are now, a mirror they can't escape. A reflection of the choices they didn't make, the risks they were too afraid to take. The life they will never have because they were too busy clinging to their comfort zone. And that is what will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Not your anger, not your pain, but the fact that you moved on, that you became something greater, that they are stuck in the same place, living the same story, while you are out there writing a new chapter every single day,